Welcome back. I'm Matt Collins from the Mainspring Group. Glad to have you with us. We are now entering the next several weeks. We're going to be looking at several specific examples of some of the dashboards that are available to you in the Pulse. And if you remember from last week, it's a very important key feature of our dashboards that they're designed to answer the questions that you're asking or you should be asking. And so that's kind of the approach we're going to take for each of these examples. We're going to start with a question, walk through the typical ways that you would pull it currently using your system, and then show you how the Pulse would do it, followed up by some actions. So this week, what we're looking at is gross margin. So the question that you would typically ask, or a version of this, is what will our gross margin be on the homes in production? Maybe all the homes, maybe a specific community, whatever the question is, that's the question. Gross margin and homes in production. So if you think through how would you do it presently in the system? Now, there are a lot of ways to get to the answer within Mark systems. So one of the typical ways that a builder may take is they would say, okay, what houses are you interested in knowing? And so we need to know every Magnolia model or every home within a specific community. Okay, got it. So you get your list of houses. Then you go to Mark Systems, job costs, reports, and then pull one budgets with committed, and you would export those. Maybe export them to Excel, or you print the PDFs or print the PDF and get it, whatever it is. You get those reports out of Mark Systems. And then you got to do a little adjustment. You got to first consider, are all the cost codes here with costs necessary when I'm calculating gross margin? And perhaps the organization does not take into account interim finance costs when it's calculating gross margin, or commissions, or maybe dumpsters, whatever it is. There's likely some cost codes that are not taken into consideration when determining gross margin. So you have to know those and you have to eliminate those. Either put a line through them on the printout or delete those rows out of Excel, whatever the case is. In addition, you would have to confirm the retail pricing. The retail pricing, maybe you go to the Performer report, or there's several reports that give you what that retail. You need to consider whether or not the promissory notes are included or excluded and how that's done. But ultimately, you determine what the retail pricing is for that house. So the first house on the list, what's my retail? What's my my COGS? The difference of the two is the gross margin, as you well know. And the percentage is your gross margin percentage. So it's a process, and the more homes you need, it's more time intensive based on the number of homes. And that's how you would do it. Now, how does the Pulse do it? When you get into the Pulse and you log in, you simply click on the dashboard. When you click on the dashboard, it instantly gives you the answer that you're asking. Now, the first step is it gives you an answer to all homes in production, and then it ultimately allows you to filter. But first, the question that this first answered is, here's your answer, all of the margin, or all your gross margins for all of your homes. Now, it's really important, the first key feature for this is that it's gross margin based on your business approach. How do you calculate revenue? For instance, are promissory notes included or not? Secondly, is it how do you calculate your cost of goods? Which cost code ranges are taken into account? Some builders may exclude land or anything in the site costs. Some builders may exclude some of the indirect costs. Maybe it's all of them, but it's designed for you. And that's that settings that we talked about last week, that we're able to set it up that your gross margin is specific to how you determine your revenue and then your COGS. And lastly, it's what's the target margin. And again, it's set up for you. So the first key feature is that it really focuses on answering the question the way that you want the question answered. The second key feature, this dashboard allows you to do a lot of filtering and drill downs once you have that first level answer. Again, last week, we give you the answer and then we allow drill downs and filtering if needed. So what would you filter on? Well, you can see that we can filter on status, whether or not it's a sold home or whether or not it's a spec home. Perhaps by division or by development or model and elevation, or a combination of all of those, whatever is necessary to get your answer. And this is key because in the typical approach, the more jobs that we have, the longer it takes us to get that answer. And so the most valuable is to, okay, which houses specifically do I need to know? Our case, we give you the answer and allow you to filter down to as few jobs as you want, potentially even down to a single job. It leads us to the last of the key features that I'm mentioning here today, and it is the budget scrubbing process. This is a very necessary step for budgets. We have to know, as a house progresses, what is our expected cost as the house progresses. Now, in the mark systems approach, if a cost is less than the actual plus committed is less than the budget, as you know, that the word budget scrubbing means that you go in and you override the original budget with what the actual plus committed is, because the system is saying, hey, if your budget's higher than your actual plus committed, we have to take the higher of the two, which makes sense. That's a reasonable approach to make sure that you're protected. What our system does is it goes beyond that. It says, well, when you're scrubbing, you're really just analyzing, are all the costs likely captured in this cost code? And we say, well, if the schedule activity associated with that cost code is marked complete more than 10 days ago, we're going to say yes. And so our system is constantly and continuously scrubbing your budgets for you based off of whatever today's status of production is. And it looks and it says, if any of those activities are marked more than 10 days ago, we're going to take actual plus committed. If that activity is not yet marked complete or within the 10 days, then we're just going to use the higher of the two. So it's actually based on the schedule activities and all of those cost codes in order to determine what is the best understanding of the expected cost for you, given what we know right now automatically. Lastly, we're going to wrap up with this. We answer the questions that you're asking or should be asking. And then also the dashboard is designed around, the entire approach with a pulse is designed around enabling you to take action. We gather the data for you. We analyze it and present it for you. You make the decision and then you add value by taking action. What are some of the potential actions that you would have with this dashboard? First is maybe you need to adjust sales prices on specific specs because something unexpected happened. Your costs are more than you anticipated, or maybe they're lower than you anticipated, but you need to make adjustments. One of those filters that you see is that spec homes can be isolated. And so that would be a reasonable potential action. The second is that maybe, and you look and you drill down and you see that some costs in a specific cost code just don't seem right. There's something wrong there. And as you saw in the illustration, we actually highlight those for you in red saying this is a budget bust. Take a look at this. And you drill in and you find out that something occurred, a double payment or whatever the circumstance was. You're able to address that. And you're able to do so preemptively before those costs actually get paid out. Maybe a third action is that you have decisions to make as an organization about where to spend and how to spend money. And one of those is obviously what gross margin can we expect. And so an action is anything that is based off of knowing where your gross margin expectations are right now for the rest of the year, for the rest of the month. And so we allow you to maintain up-to-date expectations on gross margins across all your projects, all the way down to the individual houses, so that you can make the best and most informed decision and take action today. So I appreciate the time that you spent with us today. Next week, we're going to be digging into another example. We'll get into cash flow, which will be a lot of fun, and we'll work through there. And so over the next several weeks, hope you keep joining and tuning in. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you.